Hello friend, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Becky if you're new, and today, well not just today, but we are gonna be making 4 stovetop one-pot dinners. And the first one we are gonna be making is going to be a homemade version of Hamburger Helper. I don't know about you, but this time of year right now is crazy busy. For me, my garden is producing like crazy. I am buying in-season things and putting them up to use all fall and winter, but I know it's back to school, sports are starting, so my goal with these recipes is to make life easier, and we're going to make the entire dinner in that one pot on the stovetop. The only prep work for this homemade hamburger helper is to dice 1 onion. I'm also going to shred a zucchini that I just washed up from the garden. Now this is not in the actual recipe, but I have lots of zucchini coming in from the garden and I really like adding it to things. You can't really taste it, and so we're just gonna go ahead and shred this up. So my goal for these recipes really is to kind of reduce the need for those impulse takeouts. You know, sometimes the idea of making dinner can seem overwhelming. And so a lot of these recipes that I also found are ones that have a lot of pantry staples in them as well. So instead of having to run to the grocery store to grab items, most of us have most of these items on hand for these different recipes. And this one's gonna come together super quickly. So I'm just gonna grate this zucchini. And so our veggie and our protein and everything is gonna be just in one pot. If you didn't want to add the zucchini, go ahead and skip it. But it's going to cook down to almost nothing and you won't even know what's in there. I will link these recipes down below for you, and I will also timestamp them. The other recipes we're going to be making, so this is homemade hamburger helper. We're going to be making creamy Tuscan gnocchi and sausage on the stove, veggie, protein, starch, all in one pot. We're also going to be doing a one-pot curry dish, and the final dish is a cheesy chicken and rice broccoli stovetop dinner, one-pot wonder. I don't know what order I'm going to be doing these in, so again, I will timestamp them down below next to the link to the actual written recipe. Here you can see we have some pieces of ground beef with beautiful caramelized color. That is pure flavor. So now I'm gonna add my vegetables. My zucchini is gonna go in the same time with my onions so it can cook down really well along with my onions. If you wanted an even easier dinner and you didn't even wanna prep the zucchini or the onions, use store-bought frozen onions. You can get store-bought frozen onions in the grocery store, or if you see onions on sale, chop them up, throw them in your freezer. I keep chopped frozen onions in my freezer because I get onions out of my garden and I like to do that as a time-saving tip. But I have also fresh onions and I need to use the fresh onions before I start going through my stash of frozen onions. Same with the zucchini. I will shred it and I will freeze it in kind of like individual portions, throw that into dishes like this. I will freeze dry it, put freeze-dried zucchini in here, whatever it might be. But I like to use zucchini as a way just to add vegetables to dishes along with spinach. That's another one that you can add that doesn't have much flavor, that adds good flavor, but doesn't take over, and you can kind of sneak it into things, which is always nice. And we don't have to then, you know, make another dish to saute zucchini. We're keeping it all in one pot. And now with all of these dishes that I'm gonna be making, if you wanted to have a side salad or another vegetable or something like that, you can certainly do that. But my goal is to try to reduce dishes so that not only are we having a fast and easy dinner, but the cleanup is gonna be really easy as well. Now that our onions are cooked, I'm gonna add some tomato paste that I made last summer and some garlic. And I'm gonna get that in there. And I'm actually gonna caramelize the tomato paste before we add any more of the ingredients, and we're gonna cook the garlic for a minute. Oh, it smells fantastic already. I can see on the bottom of this pot that we have a lot of stickage. That's actually a good thing. That's called fond, and that is pure flavor. I'm gonna show you how we're gonna get that up, and it'll be easy to clean this when all said and done. I just added a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. I'm gonna use that to help deglaze the bottom of the pot. But what really is gonna deglaze the bottom of the pot is some chicken stock. I'll stir that around. I'm gonna add my macaroni, stir that around. I'm gonna make sure that all of the brown bits are off the bottom of the pot so they don't burn while the macaroni cooks. I think that's good. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the lid on this. Now this just needs to cook for about 10 minutes, 8 or 10 minutes, depending on how long it takes for the noodles to cook. And it's gonna make this like creamy sauce that is thick without having to add any thickener, like flour or anything, because noodles will naturally release starches. And typically when you boil pasta, you can see how the water gets cloudy. That starch is releasing from the noodles into the water, and that's why a lot of recipes will say save some of that water and use that to thin out your sauce, because it'll actually thicken it kind of because it has that starch in it. But because we are cooking the noodles in with the broth, all of that starch is gonna be left in the pot. We're not gonna be putting it down the drain, so we're gonna get a silky, delicious sauce without having to add any thickeners to it. So this would be the perfect time to go ahead and do any cleanup you need to do, because everything is cooking away in the pot and you can clean up while dinner is cooking. So our noodles are nice and tender. They probably could cook for another minute, so this is the perfect time to add our final ingredient. And that is some cheddar cheese. I have a white, sharp cheddar cheese here. You can use whatever kind of cheese you like. I like to shred it myself and keep it in the fridge just because I think it melts better, but whatever pre-shredded cheese, if that's what you have on hand, use that. We're gonna mix this in, and our noodles, by the time the cheese is melted and fully incorporated, should be perfectly cooked. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off, and we are gonna give this a taste test. It smells incredible in here. And this is gonna be very, very hot. This is definitely a comforting meal if you have a busy, busy day to come home to this. And this was it. We basically just dirtied up one pot, a cutting board, a knife, I guess 2 spoons now. I could have skipped that. And I shredded the zucchini, so I needed to dirty up the cheese grater. But you definitely could skip that step if you wanted to. Now this is very hot, so I'm gonna let it cool for just a minute, and then we're gonna give this a taste test. I did taste it for salt and pepper, so I know it doesn't need that. I just want to give it an overall taste test with the cheese and the noodles and the beef. So good and so incredibly easy. And no one in your family would know that there's zucchini in this if you didn't want them to. If you even didn't want any of the green to show up, you could peel your zucchini, but my family's not gonna mind. I just had Josh taste it, and I asked him, can you tell that there's zucchini in it? He would have not been the wiser had I not said it. He thought that the little green in there was parsley, so that worked out perfect. So this is definitely a winner. Once we're done making all these dinners, I will rate them from what our favorites are in order. So first recipe done. It did take probably about, I didn't time it, probably about 20 minutes by the time the ground beef was browned, the vegetables were sauteed, and the noodles were cooked. But a lot of that time was not me actually having to fiddle with it, and I was able to get the kitchen clean while the noodles were cooking. This next recipe we're gonna make is gonna come together even faster than the last one. So I just went out into the garden and harvested a bunch of spinach. So I can take you back and show you me harvesting the spinach, but it desperately needs to be washed. So I'm gonna go ahead and wash that real quick. What I did before I ran out to harvest the spinach is I put some Italian sausage on to brown, and you can see that's a beautiful color. So we can move on to the next step as soon as I get this spinach washed. I'm gonna let my spinach just air dry in the colander. There's a little bit of water that ends up in my sauce. I'm okay with that. But what I'm gonna do here is just get any of this excess grease up, because we're gonna be using heavy cream in this. I don't need any extra grease. And we don't need to prep any vegetables other than what we just did. So this is going to be super quick and easy. And this was a sausage that I got from a local farmer. And so it's pretty lean, so there's not too much extra, but I'm gonna go ahead and just toss this. I have a couple of the ingredients out we need for this dinner. Basically everything out. I've got a package of store-bought gnocchi. I need to make some more gnocchi from my potatoes. Normally I like to make homemade gnocchi and I make a big batch at one time and I put them in the freezer and they're delicious. But today we're gonna use this package of store-bought ones. And this is the first time I've ever paired gnocchi with sausage, I think, which I think is gonna be delicious. So now I'm gonna add some chicken broth. This is what's gonna help cook these gnocchis, along with heavy cream. I'm gonna get this up on a high heat. I'm gonna add some sun-dried tomatoes. You definitely could grate up or chop up a zucchini and add it to this as well. That would be really good. But the recipe says spinach, so that's what we're gonna use. This is a 7-ounce jar of sun-dried tomatoes. I am going to go ahead and use half of this jar. And I'm just trying to leave some of that excess oil in the jar. I'm going to be making some of my own sun-dried tomatoes here in the next couple days. I have never made them before, so that's going to be kind of fun. And I just realized I forgot to add garlic, which is unacceptable. And so I'm just going to go ahead and add that in now. This is probably going to take a good 10 minutes or so to simmer, thicken up the sauce, and cook the gnocchi. So my garlic will cook in that amount of time. So we are 90% done with tonight's dinner already. All we need is for that to cook and turn into a beautiful sauce. Our sauce is almost reduced to perfection. We're almost there, but before it's completely done, I'm just gonna add just a little bit of lemon juice to brighten it up a little bit, along with some grated Parmesan. And I think that is about perfect thickness, and our gnocchis are perfectly cooked. I'm working on not smashing them, so I'm kind of trying to fold them over. So now I'm gonna add our beautiful, beautiful spinach. And again, if a little water gets in there, that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the stove down. The spinach is only gonna take about 30 seconds to cook. And this dinner was so incredibly easy. This was fast enough. This could be a lunch, because it came together super quickly. And you could substitute the sausage for chicken too if you wanted. And then this would basically be like a marry me chicken gnocchi Alfredo type dish. If you guys have seen the marry me kind of variations of recipes kind of go around last year, I feel like that was kind of a last year thing. Now this is perfectly thick and beautiful. So we most definitely need to give this one a taste test together. I'm not cooking the spinach until it's mush. It probably took 30 seconds to cook it. There's still definitely a nice bit of bright greenness to it. Now this is the first time I've ever added lemon juice to a cream sauce based sauce, so I'm excited to try it. I think it's a good idea to add a little bit of brightness to what otherwise would be very savory because of the sausage and the cream. So let's give this a try. I want to get a little bit of the spinach, sun-dried tomato, gnocchi, and our sausage. And I used it's just a mild Italian sausage. So if you like some heat to it, you could use a hot Italian sausage or some red pepper flakes. That is so good. I do think it needs that little bit of lemon juice because the sausage is so rich that it really kind of cuts through that and makes for a more balanced dish. This is very good. Just going off what I think I would prefer in the future would to be make this exactly the same way, but use chicken instead of sausage. Maybe I need to get used to it, but this is the first time I've ever had, like I said, sausage with a cream sauce. I think I prefer chicken. This is fantastic. We will enjoy this. But if I made this exact recipe again, I would just substitute chicken instead of the sausage. But my family is certainly going to enjoy this. I just had Josh taste this, and he agreed with me that we both think we would prefer it with chicken. But it's always fun to try something new because you never know when your next favorite combination or recipe will come from. So I am never opposed to trying something new, but sometimes it reinforces what you already know. You like chicken with cream sauce, and sometimes you find your next favorite thing. So I'll see you next time we're making a one-pot wonder. We are back at it with another one-pot wonder. So what I have here are 6 chicken thighs. I didn't realize that the chicken thighs I thought had skin on and bone in. So I went ahead and I took the skin off and deboned them so that I have basically boneless, skinless chicken thighs. And I have another pot here with a lid because we are going to be cooking the rice, the curry sauce, and everything in this pot. We need to make sure we have a pot with a lid. So now I'm just going to put a little bit of avocado oil in the bottom of this pot. And this dinner is going to be really good. I asked Josh, what do you want for dinner tonight? And I listed out what recipes, the options. And this is the one he chose for tonight's dinner. So I'm really looking forward to it. I haven't made a curry in a very long time. And I've never made a one-pot wonder curry. Normally I cook the rice separate. And so this is going to be fun to cook everything in one pot and see if we can save ourselves some dishes. So I'm going to let this heat up. And while this is heating up, I'm going to season one side of our chicken thighs with some salt and of course some pepper. I'm going to put the seasoned side down so that I can season the other side with salt and pepper. And we are not looking to fully cook the chicken through. We just want to get it nice and seared and build some flavor on the bottom of our pan and build some flavor on the chicken itself. So now that we have both sides of the chicken seasoned, we're going to come over here and I'm going to go ahead and prep these garden fresh veggies. Now I had some leftover red onion and shallots. The recipe calls for white onion, but this was in my fridge and I want to use this up. And shallots go really well with Thai food, so we're gonna go ahead and use the shallots and this red onion. And then I have 3 just red peppers from the garden that are a sweet, delicious pepper, and we're gonna use that. So here I'm just slicing up my half a red onion, and then I'm gonna slice my shallots long ways as well. That chicken already smells good and all it has on it is salt and pepper. But we are going to be adding a lot more seasonings to it. So now for my peppers. This year has been one of the best pepper years I've ever had out in the garden. I'm just going to use this container as a dish that I'll end up going to throw the seeds to the chickens with. This is a sweet pepper, so I don't mind using my hands to de-seed it. If it was a hot pepper, I would put a pair of gloves on. I think my chicken is probably ready to be turned. Nice color on that. Now that the chicken is cooked very well on both sides, I'm going to go ahead and get the chicken out of here. We'll finish getting it fully cooked when we cook it with the rice and everything else. We've got this beautiful fond on the bottom of our pot. So what we're going to do is take our veggies and we're going to sweat these and deglaze the bottom of this pot with these veggies. I'm going to season them with a little bit of salt. and a little bit of soy sauce to help along the deglazing process. I want to get all those brown bits off the bottom of the pan. If that's not happening fast enough with the moisture from the veggies, I can put a little bit of water in there as well. With that water, I wasn't looking at steaming these vegetables. I just wanted a little extra moisture so we didn't burn the bottom of the pan. This is one reason why I like using a surface or a pan that is a non-stick. So this is an enamel cast iron or stainless steel or cast iron or carbon steel, something like that, because I am okay with my food sticking to the bottom of my pans because that builds flavor. And as long as you know how to work with it by deglazing, you can work on building flavor that way. So now these onions and peppers are nice and soft. I'm gonna go ahead and use some of this green curry paste. Now the recipe I'm getting inspired by for this recipe calls to use curry powder. But if you've ever tried these curry paste before, they come in all different flavors. I think they're far superior than just a powder, but if you only have a powder, use that. Sometimes I don't have this and I have curry powder, so I use that. But I happen to have this, so I will use this. I can link this down below. It comes in lots of different flavors. This happens to be a green curry, but it comes in mushroom curry and yellow curry and red curry. And we need about I'm gonna put 3 tablespoons of this in this pot. And then I just will close this bag up, I'll put it in here and get this in the fridge, and then I'll make curry a few more times in the foreseeable future. But I wanna toast my curry in with my veggies and kind of get some flavor built into that curry paste. I'm throwing peppers out of the pot, and I'm caramelizing. I'm going to turn my pan down. I'm caramelizing things a little bit quicker than I want to, but that's okay because I'm going to add my rice next. So this is 1 cup of basmati rice. Now I need to add some moisture to deglaze the bottom of the pan again, and I need 3 cups of liquid. So I'm going to start with 1 can of coconut milk, and then I'm going to put in the rest of the water until we get our 3 cups. I'm going to use this moisture again to deglaze the bottom of the pan. Stir in that green curry in with the rice, the coconut milk. It already smells fantastic. Now just for pure flavor, I'm going to add a couple teaspoons of sesame oil. I'm going to turn this up again. And I'm going to pour in our chicken that we seared. And I'm gonna get these nestled in here along with the rice and veggies. Oh, it smells so good. Now I'm gonna put the lid on. So this is at a boil. So we're gonna have this boil for about 15-20 minutes until the rice is done. Josh just came in here and he said it smells delicious. He said it smells like crispy chicken, and he just said it smelled delicious, and I said, does it smell like curry? And he said crispy chicken.
Like blackened chicken?
Like blackened chicken? I don't know. It's green curry with peppers and shallots and onions. So while this is simmering, I'm gonna go run to the garden and grab some garnish for it. But this was probably so far the easiest recipe we have made. The hardest part was the fact that I had to debone it and take the skin off. That would have actually added a lot of flavor if I kept the skin on and the bone in, but it's not our favorite to have to eat around that. So I did save the bones and the skin, and I threw that in the freezer, so next time I make broth, I can add that to my broth. But for tonight's dinner, we're going simple and this curry dish. This actually took me less time if I had had the boneless, skinless chicken breast than for us to run and get takeout, because we kind of live far away from that, which is always good to have those kind of recipes in the back of your pocket that are super simple and easy. So let's go get some garnish. So this has been cooking for about 20 minutes, and I have stirred it a couple times just to make sure that it doesn't stick on the bottom of the pan. The rice has absorbed all the liquid, so now what I'm gonna do is put the finishing touches on. The rice is fully cooked through. I did give it a taste test. So I'm gonna add all these herbs that we harvested from the garden. And a bunch of fresh lemon. Now, if I had lime, I would use that, but I don't have lime, so we're just gonna use lemon. Here's the green curry with herbs and citrus. One thing I can tell you about the green curry is it is very spicy. So typically when I buy that paste from that brand, I buy the mushroom and the yellow curry, and it's not spicy at all. And this green curry is much spicier. So if you don't like spice, or like, not spice as in flavor spice, but like spicy, then go ahead and just use a curry powder or use a red curry paste that you know is not spicy, or a yellow curry paste. But what I want to taste is how the rice texture is and how the chicken cooked up, because even though it's not that much to save one dish, cooking the rice in the Instant Pot is typically what I do, it is nice to save yourself a dish and have it all be cooked in one pot. The only other dishes we had are the knife and cutting board. But is the texture of the rice good? That's the biggest test that we have to find out here. Okay, here we go. Even though there's quite a bit of heat to that green curry, the sweetness from the coconut milk kind of cuts through that. And this is fantastic. Now, I can tell you, I don't think Josh is gonna like this because it's gonna be too spicy for him, but I think it's great. And I really like cooking the rice in with the chicken and the veggies all at once. I really like saving that step. So I will see you next time we make a stovetop one pot wonder. Cheers. Hello friend, welcome back. Today we are making a chicken, broccoli, and rice cheesy skillet dinner. And I've got a pot with a lid on it here because we're gonna be cooking our rice and everything in this pot. So I need a pot with a lid on it. The first thing I'm gonna do is get a little bit of oil in my pot or skillet, and I'm gonna get this heating up. We're also gonna be making some cookies because I found a new chocolate chip cookie recipe I wanted to try. So that's gonna be a bonus after we make this dinner. But I wanted to show you my new oil dispenser. Over the weekend, my friend and I drove to Salem, Oregon, and we went to an art festival, a fine arts festival, and there was this potter who's actually from Boise who makes these beautiful pots. And I just got this new oil dispenser and it matches my salt dispenser. So I'm really excited about that. I can link this artist down below. She makes some of the most incredible pots and she does ship. And so I'm excited to have that. So I'm gonna get this heating up. While this is heating up, I'm gonna go ahead and cut up some chicken. The recipe says to use rotisserie chicken, which I don't have any of that. So this morning I went ahead and just thawed some chicken breast. I'm gonna slice them in half so they cook a little bit more evenly. And then I'm gonna go ahead and get them seasoned up. And because we are gonna be cooking our chicken in the pot that we're gonna be cooking our skillet dinner in, we'll be just increasing a little bit of flavor. But if you had a rotisserie chicken, definitely use that because it would save yourself a step of having to cook chicken. So I'm just checking the internal temperature of this last piece one more time. It was a little bit thicker, so it was taking a little bit longer to get to my temperature I want. And we are good now, so I'm gonna take that off. And of course, if you had a rotisserie chicken, you could skip this step entirely. One of the benefits of not skipping this step is you get this beautiful fawn on the bottom of your pot, which is just pure flavor. And so we're gonna build flavor that way. But some nights, it's easier just to have a rotisserie chicken or some other chicken you've prepped in your fridge. But we are going to be able to build more flavor because we cooked the chicken in this pot. So I just added a little bit more oil. This was just some oil I needed to use up, and a little bit of butter. Oil for temperature, butter for flavor. And now I'm gonna add some onions. These are some onions I chopped up from the garden the other day and I didn't need them for actually that marinara sauce that I have sitting on the counter right there that I've not put away yet. And so I'm gonna use these onions in tonight's dinner. And I'm gonna add just a little bit of salt to that, and that's gonna help draw out the moisture of the onions, and we're gonna be able to scrape up those brown bits with the moisture released from the onions. Oh, it smells good already. So we're gonna let these soften and get nice and tender. And while these are softening, I'm gonna get our broccoli chopped up. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and preheat my oven, because while our rice is cooking, I will go ahead and make the cookie dough. I like to experiment using different cookie recipes, and I found a really good looking chocolate chip cookie recipe that I want to try. So we're gonna make that for dessert tonight. And this recipe is kind of like a chicken and rice casserole, except it's all made on the stove, which is kind of fun. Sometimes when it comes to dinner, I don't want to turn the oven on. But for dessert, I guess I'm willing to turn the oven on. So I'm just chopping this broccoli up pretty small. We need about 2 cups of it. I'm letting my chicken rest over here, and once it's rested for a little bit, then I'll cut it into small pieces as well. That looks like about 2 cups. I also need some cheddar cheese, so I'm gonna shred that up while our onions are cooking. So I'm gonna get my broccoli into my measuring cup and just see if we got 2 cups here. And that looks like I eyeballed that perfectly. I'm gonna go rinse my cutting board off. If I don't end up using all this cheese, I don't really want broccoli in my cheese. So I do like to shred my own cheese. So usually I try to shred a little bit more than I need so that next time I need cheese, I don't have to go through the effort of shredding it. But I might use all this cheese for this recipe. The reason I like to shred it myself is I can choose what exactly type of cheese I want to shred, and I think it melts better. So I always go through the effort of shredding it myself. I shouldn't say always, but more often than not, I do. It already smells incredible in here. So to my onions that are now almost 100% cooked through and softened, I'm gonna add a little bit of garlic and let that cook. And while the garlic's cooking, I'm actually gonna go ahead and put my rice in here, and I'm gonna toast my rice in that butter and oil. So by the time my garlic is done cooking, because it is frozen and melting, my rice should be toasted. I'm just gonna let that sit and kind of toast. So my rice has some toasty bits to it, which looks fantastic. So now I'm gonna add 3 cups of homemade chicken stock. I'm gonna let this come up to a boil. And now dinner is almost done. So while our rice is cooking, we're gonna go ahead and make our cookies. This is now at a simmer, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the lid on it, and we're gonna let this simmer for a few minutes while we make our cookie dough. I love trying new chocolate chip cookie dough recipes, and this one just sounded fantastic. I love a soft and chewy cookie. And one thing I liked about this recipe is you didn't have to use room temperature butter. You actually microwave the butter, so we don't have to brown the butter, but we do microwave it until just barely melted, but not hot, but still kind of firm. So we've got our butter in here, and this makes 12 cookies. So I'm excited to give this recipe a try. Now we're gonna add a 1/4 cup of brown sugar and a 1/2 cup of white sugar, and we're gonna beat that until creamy. Now I am gonna weigh out the flour. I think it's super important to weigh out your flour when you are making cookies, because when you scoop it out, it can make a big difference. And weighing it out, you're gonna get a more accurate measurement. So I need it on ounces for this recipe. And I'm gonna measure it out with my cups so I can tell you if it would have been accurate if I had measured it with cups as opposed to weighing it. So this is 6.7 ounces, which is how many ounces we need for this recipe. And if I had measured it out with cups, I would have added a cup and a half, which would have been that whole cup earlier plus all of this. So clearly, by weighing it out, we use way less flour. So now I'm gonna add my leavening agent and my salt. And that is our cookie dough. So easy. So in less than the time it took for our rice to cook, because it's still simmering away, we were able to get dessert made. Now we still need to cook it, but I'm gonna move this out of the way. And I'm gonna grab a cookie scoop, because we're gonna use a cookie scoop to divide these cookies out. Now the nice thing about this cookie recipe is we don't need to chill it or anything, which is always nice. Some recipes call for chilling your cookie dough to get a nice chewy cookie, and this one does not. So I always like when I can make it and cook it at the same time. So we're supposed to get 12 cookies. So I'm just gonna go ahead and scoop all these out, and then I'll go back and add cookie dough if I need to. We'll see them back in 9 minutes. I just checked on our rice. It is halfway cooked at this point. So now we're gonna go ahead and add our broccoli, and we're gonna have this finish cooking with the rice. And with the broccoli, we are gonna add some cream. So this is where it's kind of like a chicken and broccoli casserole, because it's gonna have that creamy element to it. It's gonna have the cheesy element to it. We're just gonna cook the whole thing on the stove. So now I'm gonna stir this in and let this continue to cook until the rice is fully cooked and all of the broth is incorporated into the rice, and we've got a nice, thick, fully cooked rice and sauce. I cannot wait to dig into this. We haven't had broccoli in a few months because it's been summertime and we've been trying to focus on eating the veggies that come out of my garden. And I didn't grow any broccoli this year because I've had very poor luck growing broccoli in the past. So we haven't had broccoli in months. So to me, this is going to be comforting and fall, and it's just going to be delicious. So I cut my chicken up about the same size as my broccoli so that everything is kind of uniform. I'm gonna get that stirred in to reheat the chicken. So the recipe's stressed multiple times. Do not overcook these. You want the top to still look underdone. And then we're gonna pound these on the counter. So we're gonna let them cool on that for just a second, and then I will cook the other cookies that didn't fit on this cookie sheet. And this is almost done. I do need to mix in my cheese now. That'll help thicken this sauce as well. Oh, broccoli and cheese and chicken and rice are just a perfect combination. So I just let this cook for a couple more minutes. I just let the cheese melt, so now let's give this a taste test. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off. Give it one more stir just to make sure that cheese doesn't stick. And now it's nice and thick, but it still has some movement to it. And you know what this reminds me of? An easier version of risotto. Almost like a broccoli and chicken and cheddar cheese risotto. If you've ever made risotto, it can be a little bit labor intensive. And this is giving me a lot of those same kind of feels, but just a lot less work. Let's go ahead and give it a try. And then it's been 2 weeks since we've started this One Pot Wonder series. And I'm gonna have to think back on the 2 that I made, or the 3 that I made last week. And we're gonna have to rate them in order from our favorites. The broccoli is still crunchy. I love, if you wanted to use frozen broccoli, you could, but that was so easy, just cutting it really thinly, not having to blanch it. It has super savoriness from the homemade chicken broth and that sharp cheddar cheese. Oh, broccoli, cheese, onions, garlic, chicken broth. It's hard to go wrong. It's perfectly seasoned with salt. I think this might be my favorite one. This is so good. So I just ran and gave Josh a taste test of this rice, cheese, broccoli deliciousness, and we both rate that as our favorite. And I did have to pull out my recipes that I made over the last week, because 3 of them I made last week, to tell you what order they are of favorites. So for me, it goes in order of this broccoli cheddar rice bake, for Josh as well. And then I really liked the curry, the hamburger helper, and then the creamy Tuscan sausage gnocchi. I would have liked the creamy sausage gnocchi better if I had used chicken as opposed to sausage. Josh and I both agreed that the sausage was just too rich with the cream sauce and with the pillowy richness of a gnocchi. Josh rates them his favorite. He kind of said the hamburger helper and this one tie. They're a little bit different because this one has rice and chicken and the hamburger helper had noodles and beef, but they both were tied for his favorite. And then he rated the curry and the gnocchi as his second favorite. The curry was just a little too spicy for him. I love spice, so I enjoyed the heat that came from the curry paste. I will make that again. Absolutely. I really like cooking the rice on the stove with the curry and the coconut milk and all that. But I won't use that green curry paste again just because it was too hot for 2/3 of the people in my family. And so I ended up over the weekend eating a lot of curry. And then he agreed as well, the creamy Tuscan sausage was delicious, but it was a little too rich with the sausage, the cream, and the gnocchi. So now we have these cookies. I think we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna give one of these a taste test, and then I'm gonna get these on a cooling rack, and we will get the other 4 in the oven. Now, one thing I'm noticing about this cookie recipe is these cookies are very light. Normally my cookies are a little bit darker, but they are very soft on the inside. Now that is a good cookie. A little bit crunchy around the outside. I don't want to eat the rest of this till we eat our dinner. And I want to see what they are like when they're fully cooled, because you know cookies, the texture can change because these are still kind of hot. But I think that these are a winner of a recipe. I think what I'm going to do with the next 4 cookies that I bake, I was going to do it to these ones, but I forgot. And that is to add a little bit of crunchy, flaky salt. I'm getting in here to get my crunchy sea salt. This is one of my new favorite salts for this application. I can link this down below for you as well if you're interested. And it is the Malden sea salt. I like the Jacobsen sea salt as well, but that one is a little bit pricier. So this is kind of my go-to for things like cookies. I'm trying to save my Jacobsen salt for really special occasions, like garden fresh roasted vegetables that need to be finished with a little bit of salt. So 9 minutes was perfect on these. We'll see what these look like when they come out of the oven. Now, the nice thing about this dinner that I just made tonight is that it's gonna be plenty for dinner tonight plus dinner tomorrow. I am going to be canning up a lot of tomatoes tomorrow, and I am not gonna be wanting to cook dinner. So we will rely on my previous self's efforts from tonight for tomorrow night's dinner. So if you want to cook any of these recipes, I will link them down below for you so you can go ahead and cook them. We did 4 dinners, 1 dessert, and they were all delicious. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. and I can pop some more videos here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.